In the vast expanse of the Galactic Federation, Earth was a latecomer, barely more than a backwater world with technology centuries behind the most advanced species. The Galactic Marines, considered the pinnacle of military prowess, saw Earth's forces as a joke. Their soldiers were enhanced with cybernetics, genetic modifications, and equipped with cutting-edge weaponry. Earth's soldiers? Simple humans relying on their physical endurance and primitive tactics. The Federation organized a military demonstration, a showcase of each planet's best, with the Galactic Marines expected to dominate. Earth's amphibious forces were the target of much of the scorn, particularly by the Galactic Marines who saw their reliance on physical ability and traditional tactics as laughable. Amphibious operations? That was ancient history, the stuff of lesser civilizations. The Galactic Marines, who could breathe in any atmosphere, swim at supersonic speeds, and had thermal and night vision built into their helmets, had no need for such outdated methods. And so they mocked. They laughed at the very idea of amphibious warfare, calling it a relic of an old and backward era. Earth had something to prove, and in response, they didn't send a fleet or a squad. They sent one man, a Navy SEAL known only by his call sign: Ghost. Ghost wasn't like the Galactic Marines. There were no enhancements, no cybernetics under his skin. He carried no exotic weapons, only the tools he had trained with for years. What he had, though, was decades of experience in the harshest battlefields Earth had to offer. His training was forged in the fires of the most grueling environments on Earth. He had fought in jungles, deserts, and freezing oceans. And he had never lost. The Galactic Marines sneered when Ghost arrived. They stood, their gleaming armor reflecting the lights of the massive arena where the trials were to take place. The SEAL, dressed in standard combat fatigues, appeared small in comparison. One man, against an army of enhanced soldiers? It was laughable to them. "Is this Earth's idea of a challenge?" one of the Marines scoffed. "They've sent a single, unmodified human. How quaint." But Ghost remained silent. He didn't need to boast. He didn't need to prove anything to them, yet. His mission was clear: survive and outmaneuver the Galactic Marines. And, as he stood before them, assessing each of their strengths and weaknesses, Ghost knew that this would be more than just survival. It would be domination. The Galactic Federation outlined the trials, a series of combat simulations that would test the limits of Earth's soldier against the best the galaxy had to offer. The first challenge was in the dense, hostile jungle terrain of an alien world. The Galactic Marines were confident. They had fought in jungles before, on planets where the trees towered hundreds of feet high, where the air was toxic and every inch was crawling with deadly lifeforms. They had thrived in those environments. What was one more jungle? As the trial was set to begin, the Galactic Marines activated their helmets, syncing up their HUDs to track Ghost's movements. The jungle was foreign, but with their tech, they believed they could find him in minutes. But Ghost had other plans. With the sound of the starting alarm, he vanished into the underbrush. The Marines fanned out, scanning with thermal vision, motion sensors, and biometric readers. But the jungle swallowed Ghost whole. Minutes turned to hours, and not a single trace of him was found. Occasionally, a Marine would catch a glimpse of something moving in the distance, only for it to disappear into the thick foliage. Their frustration grew. "Where is he?" one of the Marines muttered, scanning the dense jungle with his enhanced vision. "He can't hide forever." But Ghost wasn't hiding. He was waiting. The Galactic Marines moved through the jungle in formation, relying on their tech to detect any sign of movement. But Ghost wasn't going to give them the fight they expected. He didn't need brute force, he needed strategy. He used the natural sounds of the jungle to mask his own movements, creeping closer to the Marines without them even realizing. The first trap was simple. A triggered snare, rigged with local plant fibers, that snapped a Marine into the air. The others reacted instantly, scanning the area, but Ghost was already gone. As they cut their comrade down, the unease began to settle in. This wasn't a fight, they were being hunted. Ghost continued his assault, never engaging directly. He set up ambushes, booby traps, and distractions, forcing the Marines to waste their energy chasing shadows. Every time they thought they had him cornered, he was somewhere else. They soon realized that their technology wasn't as foolproof as they believed. Their advanced tracking systems became liabilities as Ghost exploited every blind spot and every over-reliance on tech. By the time the sun began to set, the Galactic Marines were worn down. They had expected a quick and easy victory, but now they were lost in the jungle, their advanced suits drained of power from hours of scanning. The once confident banter had faded into silence. They were being outclassed by a single, unenhanced human. Ghost, on the other hand, was patient. He had learned long ago that endurance was one of humanity's greatest strengths. The Galactic Marines, with all their enhancements, weren't used to being pushed to their limits. But Ghost thrived in that space. He had been there before, and he knew exactly how to push them until they broke. When the Galactic Marines finally regrouped, down in numbers and morale, Ghost made his final move. Using the cover of the thick jungle canopy, he descended on the remaining Marines like a ghost in the night, taking them out one by one in silence. By the time the trial was declared over, Ghost stood alone in the clearing, the Galactic Marines defeated, their pride shattered. The first trial had been a lesson, one that the Galactic Marines wouldn't soon forget. The jungle trial had been a harsh wake-up call for the Galactic Marines, but their confidence wasn't entirely broken. After all, the next challenge would take place in an environment they believed would give them an undeniable advantage: underwater. The Marines, with their advanced breathing apparatuses and underwater propulsion systems, were certain this would be their chance to humiliate Ghost and show the galaxy why they were the best. The setting for this trial was a deep ocean trench on a planet where the crushing depths and frigid waters would be a death sentence for most. But Ghost, being a Navy SEAL, had trained in environments far more hostile than any the Galactic Marines had encountered. Still, the Marines felt sure of victory. Their tech allowed them to swim at incredible speeds, their gear was pressure-resistant, and their helmets provided sonar to track any movement within the water. How could a human hope to compete? As soon as the trial began, the Marines activated their propulsion systems, zooming through the dark waters in search of Ghost. With their sonar scans sweeping the ocean floor, they believed they could locate him with ease. But just as in the jungle, Ghost didn't play by their rules. He moved with the currents, using the ocean itself to mask his presence. Instead of relying on tech, Ghost relied on instinct and training, using the natural ebb and flow of the water to glide silently through the trench. The Marines, overconfident in their gear, were fast but noisy. Their propulsion systems left trails of bubbles in their wake, alerting Ghost to their every move. They scanned the area repeatedly, but each time they thought they had located him, they found nothing but empty water or a distorted echo from the surrounding environment. Their frustration grew with each failed attempt, and they began to increase their pace, thinking that if they just moved faster, they could corner him. But speed wasn't the answer. Ghost understood the limitations of the human body in the water better than any of them understood their own tech. He used the terrain to his advantage, swimming through narrow crevices in the coral reefs, where their bulky suits couldn't follow. He avoided direct confrontation, knowing that his strength wasn't in head-on engagements, but in his ability to outthink and outmaneuver. Hours passed, and the Galactic Marines still couldn't pin him down. They started to split up, thinking they could cover more ground and flush him out. But that only made it easier for Ghost to isolate them, picking them off one by one without ever being detected. The Marines, separated and struggling to maintain contact through their comms, began to realize that they were no longer hunting Ghost, he was hunting them. In the murky depths, Ghost's first strike came without warning. He targeted a Marine who had ventured too far from the group, silently disabling his propulsion system and leaving him stranded. By the time the others realized what had happened, it was too late. Ghost had already disappeared back into the shadows of the trench, leaving behind only the eerie silence of the deep. The Marines regrouped, now wary of every shadow in the water. They increased their scanning efforts, hoping their sonar could finally catch him. But Ghost used their own tech against them, moving into the blind spots of their sonar, exploiting the weaknesses in their systems. The more they relied on their technology, the more Ghost manipulated it, feeding them false readings and leading them deeper into the trench where the pressure became unbearable, even for their enhanced suits. Panic began to set in as their oxygen levels dropped. The Galactic Marines, so used to overwhelming their enemies with superior firepower and tech, were being outlasted by a human with nothing more than a basic diving kit and an indomitable will to survive. Ghost didn't need to engage them in combat to win. He was letting the environment do the work for him. The deeper they went, the more they struggled to keep up. In the pitch-black waters, where visibility was almost non-existent, Ghost made his final move. He had drawn them into the perfect trap, an underwater cave system where their bulky suits and limited maneuverability would be their downfall. One by one, he disabled their propulsion systems, cutting off their ability to retreat. By the time the last Marine realized what was happening, it was too late. Ghost had already taken control of the situation, methodically dismantling their defenses without ever allowing them the chance to fight back. When the trial ended, the Galactic Marines were left floating helplessly in the water, their once pristine suits damaged, their tech rendered useless. Ghost emerged from the depths, unharmed, having used nothing more than his training and his understanding of the environment to outclass them. The Marines, who had mocked Earth's amphibious forces, were now faced with the harsh reality that their advanced tech couldn't compensate for a lack of true skill and experience. The underwater trial had been a demonstration of pure mastery over the elements. The Galactic Marines had been defeated not through brute force or superior technology, but by a single human who knew how to use the environment to his advantage. It was a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. With the second trial over, the Galactic Marines had to come to terms with the fact that Ghost wasn't just an opponent. They were facing someone who had mastered the art of combat in ways they hadn't even considered. But there was still one more trial to go, and they were determined to reclaim their pride, even if it meant pushing themselves to the absolute limit. The underwater defeat had shaken the Galactic Marines, but their confidence still wasn't completely shattered. They believed the third and final trial, an urban warfare scenario in their own advanced base, would be the ultimate test of Ghost's abilities. This wasn't an untamed jungle or a foreign ocean. This was their environment, built by them, for them, with every advantage a Galactic Marine could want. The sprawling, high-tech complex was full of security systems, automated defenses, and cutting-edge tech. In their minds, Ghost couldn't possibly overcome this final challenge. The trial began with the Marines taking up defensive positions throughout the base. They were heavily armed, equipped with tech that could monitor every movement within the structure. Their security cameras scanned every corridor, their automated turrets ready to fire at the first sign of movement. The base was their fortress, and they were convinced no one, especially not a lone human, could infiltrate it. But Ghost didn't rely on brute force or tech. He had already shown that he could outthink and outmaneuver them. This time was no different. While the Galactic Marines busied themselves setting up defenses and scanning for any sign of him, Ghost moved silently through the shadows, using the ventilation shafts and blind spots in their security systems to avoid detection. He wasn't interested in a direct assault. Instead, he began systematically disabling the base's systems from within. The Marines didn't realize what was happening at first. Their scanners told them everything was fine, that Ghost hadn't even made it inside. But in reality, Ghost had already infiltrated the heart of the base. One by one, he deactivated the cameras, shut down sections of the base's power grid, and rerouted communication lines. The Marines were still confident in their tech, unaware that their control over the base was slowly slipping away. When they finally realized something was wrong, it was too late. They scrambled to get their systems back online, but Ghost had already anticipated their response. He had left false trails, making them think he was in one part of the base while he moved to another. Every time they thought they had him cornered, he was somewhere else, always a step ahead. Frustration mounted among the Galactic Marines. They were used to overwhelming their enemies with superior firepower, but Ghost wasn't giving them the fight they wanted. Instead, he was using the base against them, turning their own systems into traps. At one point, the Marines attempted to regroup in a central command room, thinking they could outnumber him. But when they arrived, they found the doors sealed shut, the lights flickering, and the air vents pumping smoke into the room. Ghost had turned their sanctuary into a prison. Panic began to set in. The Marines, despite all their tech, found themselves unable to track Ghost, unable to predict his movements. He was everywhere and nowhere at once, using their own arrogance and over-reliance on tech to his advantage. They had mocked him for being a single, unenhanced human, but now they were trapped in their own base, hunted by the very man they had ridiculed. Ghost continued his assault, using hit-and-run tactics to take out small groups of Marines before disappearing again into the maze of corridors and maintenance tunnels. He was relentless, never giving them a moment to regroup or regain control of the situation. The Galactic Marines, for all their enhancements in tech, were being dismantled piece by a single, unmodified human who knew how to fight smarter, not harder. As the trial wore on, the remaining Marines realized they were losing. Their tech had been rendered useless, their automated defenses turned against them, and their numbers dwindling with each passing hour. Ghost had won the mental battle long before the physical one had even begun. He had made them afraid of every shadow, every flicker of light, every unfamiliar sound in the base. In the final moments of the trial, Ghost made his presence known to the last group of Marines. They were huddled in the central control room, trying desperately to get their systems back online. The tension was palpable as they realized they had lost control of the base. And then, without warning, Ghost appeared in the doorway, his face obscured by the shadows. The Marines, exhausted and beaten, could do nothing as he disabled their weapons and left them defenseless. The trial was over. The Galactic Marines, once so confident in their superiority, had been defeated in their own stronghold. They had relied on their technology and enhancements to give them an edge, but Ghost had shown them that true combat wasn't about who had the best gear. It was about who could think on their feet, adapt to the situation, and use the environment to their advantage. As the dust settled and the trial came to an end, the Galactic Marines were forced to confront the reality that they had been bested by a single human. Ghost had proven that Earth soldiers, though lacking in the advanced tech of the Galactic Federation, possessed something far more dangerous: the ability to adapt, outthink, and overcome any challenge. The legend of Ghost spread quickly through the Galactic Federation, and Earth's forces earned a newfound respect among the other planets. The Galactic Marines, humbled by their defeat, would never again underestimate the power of human ingenuity and resilience. The trial was over, and the Galactic Marines were left to face the reality of their defeat. Humiliated, their pride shattered, they gathered in the debriefing room, their expressions a mix of disbelief and frustration. The image of Ghost, silent, unyielding, and victorious, was burned into their minds. They had expected to easily crush Earth's forces, relying on their advanced technology and bioenhancements to secure a quick and decisive victory. But that hadn't happened. Instead, they had been systematically outwitted, outmaneuvered, and dismantled by a lone human. The Galactic Federation, which had orchestrated these trials to evaluate Earth's military potential, had watched the entire event with interest. Initially, most of the Federation's members had shared the Marines' skepticism. Humanity, a species still relatively new to interstellar politics, was seen as primitive and underdeveloped. The Federation saw Earth's contributions as minimal, especially compared to the centuries of dominance by other species. The trial was intended to prove that Earth's forces were outclassed, a mere formality to justify the low standing of humans in the broader galactic hierarchy. But now, things had changed. What the Federation had witnessed wasn't just a display of military prowess, it was a demonstration of human adaptability, resilience, and a willingness to fight against impossible odds. Ghost had proven that, despite lacking the enhancements and technology of their adversaries, humans could hold their own in any situation. He had taken on the best the galaxy had to offer and emerged victorious, not through brute strength, but by using the very tools meant to defeat him against his enemies. The Galactic Marines, for all their strength and arrogance, had been caught off guard by one simple fact: they had underestimated the power of raw human ingenuity. They had relied on their technology to solve every problem, never considering that a soldier like Ghost, trained to survive and thrive in the most hostile environments, could think beyond the limits of their systems. In the days following the trial, word of Ghost's victory spread like wildfire through the Galactic Federation. The story of how a single Navy SEAL had defeated the Galactic Marines became a legend, passed from one planet to the next. It wasn't just a tale of military success, it was a story about the potential of humanity. Other species, once dismissive of Earth, began to reconsider their views. If humans could produce soldiers like Ghost, perhaps they were not as weak as the galaxy had believed. Within the Federation, opinions began to shift. Diplomats from other planets approached Earth's representatives with newfound respect, acknowledging that they had underestimated the planet's potential. Earth's military might was no longer a joke, and the mockery that had once surrounded their amphibious forces disappeared. Instead, there was an appreciation for the strategic brilliance and grit that Ghost had displayed. But while the Federation discussed the implications of Earth's rising status, the Galactic Marines had their own internal reckoning to deal with. The defeat had cut deep, not just because they had lost, but because they had been so sure of their victory. For years, they had trained to be the ultimate fighting force, relying on technology, enhancements, and overwhelming force to win every battle. Ghost had shown them that those things alone weren't enough. The Marines, led by their commanders, were forced to reevaluate their approach to warfare. They had grown complacent, relying too heavily on their tech to solve every problem. Ghost had exposed their vulnerabilities, not just in their tactics, but in their mindset. They had never considered that a soldier without enhancements could be a threat. They had believed that technology alone made them superior. Now they knew better. Some of the Marines even began to study Ghost's tactics, trying to understand how he had managed to defeat them so completely. It was clear that they needed to adapt if they wanted to maintain their status as the galaxy's elite. The lessons Ghost had taught them, about the importance of strategy, adaptability, and endurance, were ones they would not soon forget. As for Ghost himself, he returned to Earth a hero. His name became synonymous with human resilience and determination. He had not only represented Earth in the trials but had proven that the human spirit, when pushed to its limits, could overcome anything. Though he said little about his victory, preferring to stay out of the spotlight, his actions spoke louder than any words ever could. Earth's military, once seen as outdated, was now held in high regard, and Ghost's legend would live on for generations. The trials had accomplished more than the Galactic Federation had intended. What was meant to be a showcase of Earth's inferiority had instead become a testament to their strength. The Galactic Marines, once proud and untouchable, had been humbled. And the Federation, with its new understanding of humanity's potential, began to see Earth not as a primitive world but as a planet full of possibilities. In the end, Ghost's victory wasn't just about defeating the Galactic Marines. It was about changing the way the galaxy viewed humanity. It was about proving that, in a universe filled with advanced species and overwhelming odds, there was still something unique about the human spirit, something that couldn't be quantified or enhanced. The ability to adapt, to endure, and to triumph in the face of adversity was what made humans dangerous. And now, the entire galaxy knew it.